How's it going, everybody? Jason Croft here, and I'm here with the great John Hill. Hello, John.
Hey man, I'm super stoked to be here.
Awesome. So glad to have caught up again last week. And I wanted John here on the show to, especially as part of this What's Working Now series, because I was so impressed with how he reached out and what he's doing on LinkedIn. And it's something that's very actionable that everyone watching can go and do something similar, right? And have these kind of meaningful connections and conversations. But then to take that much further is what he is doing once he's connecting with everybody. So I know your company's adapted growth, your sales, your connection in making sure that you bring new business to companies across the board. Giving a little background quickly on adapted growth and just your background.
So before this, I ran a website design agency with a business partner, and we were just both focused on sales stuff. We were not developers. We had a team for that, and really just spent all the time trying to improve the sales thing as much as possible. Really started to geek out inside the website design agency around CRMs because they were hugely impactful for me. And I had worked in corporate roles before and had to use a big clunky, proprietary CRM and hated it.
Right.
And but I really
That's if they're
realized
using them, right? If they're not on a spreadsheet or something.
exactly, yeah, exactly. We'll talk about that in a second. And so really excited to geek out on that because every time I went and added, 5 or 10 more deals to my pipeline, I felt better about it. I felt in a better state of mind to have really good sales conversations. The first step is if you want better sales conversations, you need more volume. And the way to handle more volume is with a CRM. And so I really started to geek out on it. And then I started to help some other people set theirs up. And then I started to realize that there was a lot more that I could do with this. So that's most of what we do at Adaptive Growth is we work with small teams, consultants, agencies to make sure that anybody can sell as well as the founder can.
When you have this conversation with
Mhm.
both folks on the sales side and that CEO, what is it that's really clicks for them in what you offer?
The founder's doing this stuff intellectually, instinctually anyway, right? They're hearing something in a conversation and it makes their hair stand on end and they realize, okay, this is good, I should continue, or this is problematic, this might not be a good fit for these reasons, right? And they do that at a level that they're not even fully aware of yet. And when you give your sales to someone else, if they don't have that same level of knowledge, then they're trying to close to everybody, right? Anybody who can fog a mirror is the kind of like popular, sales qualification metric.
Right.
But as a marketer, that the more time you spend refining who you're trying to market to and what that message needs to look like and go through that process of crafting an avatar and everything else, that your marketing gets so much easier. Sales is the same way. The first step is we have to break down the whole into parts that are manageable so that way we can look for
Meaning the
ways.
whole like the business processes, that how that particular business works, right?
Absolutely, right.
Yep.
So the whole is sales and selling, right? But there's parts in that. And so for me, when I think about selling, I break it into three main compartments. There's your targeting, there's your qualifying, and then there's your closing, right? And so because of that, the reason why I break them into those three areas is because every business that I have worked with on this kind of thing and every person who's asked me a question about sales and everything falls into one of those three areas, right? You're either spending time with people who are not part of your like really, really target market, the people who you kill it for, in which case you shouldn't be spending time with them. If you're trying to qualify those people, which hopefully you are, but a lot of people don't, they kind of skip the qualification part, and that's where the process breaks down. And they just go straight from, oh, hey, would you like a proposal? Because I can get you one, right?
Right.
And then they're wasting all this time. So targeting is a huge one, right? For other people, it's qualifying. I think we've all had the vehicle that has had that kind of wonkiness to it that is part of the driving or starting process, right? I had a 97 Ford Ranger that had a leaky radiator and one tire that always had a slow leak. So after seeing that temperature gauge climb to like almost exploding a couple of times, I start to check proactively in the radiator, right? I check to make sure that there's fluid in there so that way it doesn't blow up in the fast food, checkout line.
Right. Again. Right.
Exactly. But sales is the same way, right? If I know that this is going to be a thing that could potentially sideline me, I'm going to look for it proactively. And the same thing happens in selling, and that's where your qualifying stage takes place, right?
Right.
We know because studies have been done that most business only gets lost due to 6 reasons. So what if you ask questions around those 6 reasons before you spend a bunch of time creating a proposal and trying to woo them and follow up and chase, right? At least then you can know who to say no to.
Right. That's
And
fantastic.
that's one of the most important things about sales is that when you're trying to sell to everybody, you have to get everybody to say yes. And that means you're going to spend a lot of time following up with people who don't need follow-ups. You're going to chase people who don't need to be chased or anything else. And anytime anybody comes to you and they say, hey, Jason, I would love to talk to you for a few minutes. When you think everybody is someone who needs your service, you're going to carve out time to spend with that person because it might lead to business.
Right. And this was another part that really was just amazing to me, kind of what you're putting together. You're walking in with this solution for the CEO, for the business ownership here, to kind of help them with this process. They pull it out of their heads. They know what they do. They've just never gone through the motions of putting a system in place. But then also kind of what you're seeing right now today, in this current environment, are these amazing salespeople who have lost their job just because of the sheer
Mm-hmm.
economy, and you're kind of working to put those two together as well, right?
Absolutely. I have been I've been in sales for 20 years if we're lumping in bartending and waiting tables, which I do because that's where I got my feet wet. And
Okay.
so because of that, I'm seeing tons of friends and connections that I've known for a long time who are out of work, furloughed, laid off, and everything else. And there's this whole movement online about high ticket closers, right? And if you're familiar with uh, Dan Locke or the traffic and funnels guys, they've got their accreditation programs that get people to that point to where they can work from home, close deals for other people, make money, and it's mutually beneficial, right? The
Right.
owner, founder isn't having to take those calls anymore. The closer is, they're closing deals, and ideally that works seamlessly and is perfect. But it doesn't ever work seamlessly out of the box, right? I
Right.
mean, if bringing on a new person into your business is not one of your major kind of anxiety points as a business owner, I don't think you're looking at it correctly.
Right.
And then let's also look at the fact that with paid search and paid social and all of these things, some of these agencies in particular are paying $125, $150 per lead.
Sure.
So do you want to give that to the brand new guy? And how comfortable is that? Because, I don't know anybody who wants to give a salesperson lots of expensive at bats, right? So the thing is when you don't have to, though. You can give them the tools, the checklists, the scripts, the information, the qualifiers, so that way they've got that same level of laser-like focus that the owner does in those conversations, right? They can say no and feel good about it because they know that they're not part of the target market. They can say yes to things that do make sense because there's a level of clarity that sometimes doesn't always get pushed down to like that frontline salesperson. That's what I'm trying to give these business owners, as well as the technology and everything else necessary to track the results of the salesperson. So that way, these owners and founders who've got good leads, good inbound in place, can get selling off of their plates at the same time helping a salesperson who wants to work from home because we don't really know how long we're going to be under this new norm.
This is phenomenal. I love what you're doing with and for business owners, salespeople, bringing them together like that. I think is just incredible. I really want to dig into and really have a part two to what you're doing specifically on LinkedIn to reach out to these folks, to reach out to your entire network. So let's do that. So wanted to have this two-parter here because I wanted to make sure we had time to dig into what you're doing on LinkedIn, John. Hopefully you guys have watched the part one of this with really the service that he's providing to business owners, to salespeople out there. It's just incredible. I really wanted to dig in today with exactly what he's doing to reach out to folks on LinkedIn. He's honestly, he's systematized. Is that the word?
Yeah,
Systematized this process, but in such an amazing human way as well. So thanks for being on again, John.
absolutely. I'm super happy to be here. And I think that right now, uh, everybody's processes are shot, so we have to adjust because things are different than what they were even 3 weeks ago. The landscape has changed, so you
Oh
got
yeah.
to figure out what's working now. And I found some things that have been helpful for me about keeping the pipeline full and keeping introductions and referrals coming in.
Quickly too, though, walk me through just your process right now for how you reach out to me and what you're doing on LinkedIn to have these
Sure.
more of these conversations.
Yeah. So the thing is that in new times, the process has to change. It has to shift. It has to adapt, right? And so I reached out to you because everybody has a little bit more time now, right? And this is a huge bonding moment, right? So people who you've known
Right.
for a while, but you don't have like really high level of rapport with, you can reach out to them. Hey, how's your business doing during this time, right? And that's kind of what I reached out to you with. I said, because we've known each other for a couple of years. We've hung out a couple of times,
Hmm.
but I realized that I hadn't caught up with you in over a year. So I said, hey, Jason, right? It's been a while since we caught up. I'm using this time to try to network deeper. Could we hop on Zoom and look for some opportunities to make some referrals and introductions? And on the back end of it, I have a guide that I have written about exactly what I'm doing and how I'm using LinkedIn to keep my pipeline full. And I can share it with you at the end of it. And I think you would have said yes anyway because we kind of knew each other. But
Sure.
you said on the call that one of the things you're excited about was having access to that guide.
Oh yeah, that grabbed me so much. Again, even though we knew each other,
Yeah,
there was still I was like, oh, I want to see that.
yeah.
I want that for sure. So I think
So
that's fantastic.
so on a regular week, right? I like warm introductions, right?
Mhm.
There's a difference mentally between a cold introduction and a warm introduction, obviously, but most of that lies in our heads. So I like having warm introductions, as do most salespeople. And so what I do is I reach out to these people and say, hey, let's have a targeted deep dive. Let's dig into your connections and my connections, look for some referrals and introductions, and try to help each other out. And
Yep.
people get it. And then you're going to run into some things that doesn't always go according to plan, but the guide has got workarounds and ways to make sure that you're going to get on average 2 to 3 new introductions from everybody that you do this with. So
Nice.
I've upped my count to doing 30 requests per week for these kinds of meetings, right? And of
Wow.
that, I track my results of how many people say yes. And then I track how many referrals and introductions I get. And then I can figure out how to make the most with what I have. How do I make it easier? How do I reduce the friction? How do I make it as easy as possible to refer me? And what I've come up with is this guide that's got all this information in here. It's actually last round of edits is being done today to make sure it looks spick and span. Our friend Jake is almost signed off on the final version of it, but not quite there.
Nice.
So
Got to meet Jake
um,
standards. You got to.
exactly. I
Right.
mean, I mean, the Jake Jordan standard is up there. So yeah, so it's almost done, but it's everything I'm doing and it's working. And then there's other little bitty shifts, that you can do around cold email and video email. We spent some time talking about Vidyard the other day, which is
Hmm.
a way to record videos to drop them into emails for prospecting messages,
Yeah.
right? Video converts, obviously, or else you wouldn't be doing it, right? So
Right.
the doing things like Vidyards that way you can send someone a message and there's like, hey, there's a human here, and I know this is crazy and this might not be on your radar at all, but if it is, would it make sense to have a conversation? Right? I get to control the tone. I get to control the humane moment of it, and it's going to be harder for your prospect to just archive or delete because they see the human attached to it.
Right.
So I know it's not comfortable. Not everybody's Jason Croft and excellent with the voice and the look and everything, but it's working, right? It's getting
Yeah.
results because people aren't sitting at their desks, but they're still getting their email. So
Oh
any
yeah.
adjust to the process is worth trying at this point because we've never been here before. But to be able to adjust your process, you have to have a process in the first place, or else you're just winging it.
Right. I'm someone who that's what excites me about the 12-page deal you've got going too, because I'm someone who naturally, quote unquote, because I made myself into it, loves connecting and just says, "Oh yeah, let's get on a call, let's do that."
Mm-hmm.
There's so many people who aren't, but I think that offer of that guide of here's a structure to this speaks to both. Speaks to people who don't do this, have never done this before, like, okay, please tell me what to do. But it also speaks to someone like me, like, oh, I could get better at this. I could formalize, I could systematize this even
Yeah.
more. So I'm excited for that. Excited for what you're doing. This is really slick. I've already, I know, told I don't know how many people, and that's the power of exactly what you're doing, right? Like we had that conversation the other day. It sparked this. It sparked, oh, I need to introduce him to Jonathan. I need to introduce him, to this
Yeah.
person and that person, just easily and naturally because what you're doing makes sense and resonates with me. And that's huge right now, just to have these conversations.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn as a whole is kind of being it. We're on a precipice, I would say. There's room for it to turn into something terrible as far as just transactional pitching endlessly.
Sure.
But I think there are some people who are using it kind of in the same way as like this is a networking tool for me, first of all, right? I've got lots of connections on here. I'm going through and I'm spending time. Hey, let's sit down and look for some targeted introductions and referrals.
Yeah.
And the other big part of that is you have to be a giver, right? If you're going to go around town and you're going to ask all these people for introductions and everything else, you got to give as much as you're asking for, right? I mean,
For sure.
we had our call the other day, and I had another call after that, and instantly I was thinking, Jason's got to meet this guy, right? So I did the introduction. Not sure if you've had a conversation yet, but
Scheduled today. Yeah.
there's still room to be top of mind,
Hmm.
right? And even though because it'd been a while since we caught up and you had moved, so we weren't as you know in the trenches as I am with some people on these calls because there's a lot of life events and kind of general catching up.
Sure.
But we had the meeting, right? I got an introduction from you. You got an introduction from me, and now we're here. We're doing these things. So
Right. It's
the
huge.
effort is still worth doing even during these times, right? But you got to go deeper, right?
Right.
I think it's almost the opposite of what the normal marketing message is of trying to go wider and trying to automate it so that way it's completely handled. Like I think that people are looking for the humane element of this, especially during this time when we're trying to
Yeah.
figure this out.
Oh, big time. And I think there's value in both. I think there's value in doing the macro and the micro both in this. Something I'm doing, I've
Yeah.
got some of those things in place. That's like, hey, let's, here's all the things, get going. But those are all in service of this, getting to
Yeah.
this point and having that conversation, that human level. So I think it's great.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being on and sharing all this. This is awesome.
Dude, anytime I can be around Jason Croft and that sweet beard, I lunge at it. I can't live without it in my life.
Oh, if I had $1 for every time I heard that, oh man, I'd almost have $1. It'd be great. Thanks so much, John. We'll talk to you soon.
Awesome, man. Cheers. Thank you.